Jennifer?
I think so. I think so.
All
How are you,
right.
Aaron?
I'm doing really well. It's always great to see you.
Good to see
I
you.
love doing these shows with you. It's really a joy and a privilege to co-host with you.
I'm
And
surprised we haven't run out of things to talk about yet.
true. Yeah. I, every time we have one, it feels like there's more possibilities, more directions. So I don't
Absolutely.
know. And yeah, until that
I agree.
ends, maybe we keep going.
Yep.
Um, and it's wonderful to have everyone join us. Thank you so much. I see many of you from past Hanging with Heroes. I see many familiar faces. Thank you all for joining us. This
Yeah.
is a wonderful industry to be a part of, and it's the camaraderie and friendship, I think, that plays
Yep.
such an important role. And hello, friends. It's great to see all of you. We've got a great episode tonight. Jennifer and I have many crafty friends, so we haven't run out of them yet. At least people who are willing to say they're our friends are joining these Hanging with Heroes, which is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to have these conversations. We started this all off with the idea that Hero Arts is 50 years old this year, which is really exciting. I mean, it's hard to imagine. And at the same time, the industry really kind of started and grew up right around that same time. Because when we started, there weren't really the ink colors and the papers and all the wonderful
Right.
supplies that we have today. There weren't the companies that hadn't even been thought of yet in some cases. There weren't the products because they hadn't been invented. And so now it's really a celebration of how far we've come over those 50 years and really thinking through, man, what a wonderful industry and what a wonderfully creative place. Jennifer and I were just talking off stage about how, this is a unique industry. Big
Yep.
business, maybe they just don't have that creativity. They don't have that spark. They don't have that joy that we experience every day and maybe sometimes even take for granted. So this is an opportunity to
Yep.
celebrate it and really
For
talk
sure.
through it. Yeah. And yeah, and I just love the opportunity to talk about the industry with you, Jennifer, because you are such an important part of over the years and my memories with Hero Arts, with kind of
Yep.
raising the industry. The quote that we always say, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I got that wrong like the first 5 episodes, but I think I
Yep. We
finally got that
finally.
quote
It's
right.
what number is this? What episode is this?
This is number 12.
12. We
So,
finally got it right. We finally figured it out.
right.
I still will get it wrong every time, but that's okay. That's okay.
I was thinking we should make a stamp of it so we remember it.
I think we should. We've said it enough. We should definitely do so.
True. Yes. All right. You heard it here first. A stamp is coming with that quote.
Excellent.
Um, yes. And so I really credit you, Jennifer, in so many ways because I think you say, thank you to a lot of our guests so that you can have the kind of do the thing that you love so much. And I think in so many ways you've
Absolutely.
inspired me. You've taught me. You've taught so many in this industry. So it truly is an honor to be doing these discussions with you week in and week out when we do them.
And I wouldn't be a card maker if it wasn't for you. So, all of the people who get mad at me for all the fun products I share with them and the money they spend, it's actually not my fault. It's Aaron's because Aaron's the one who taught me card making. So, you can talk to him.
Yes. And the industry was a very different place back then.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and it's wonderful to talk about it. And I hope all of you joining us tonight aren't bored hearing the stories because I think it really goes to the origins and the roots of why our industry is so creative and what we have today in terms of techniques and products and classes and
Yep.
companies. It really goes back to those early days and skipping to um, the time that you and I met right in the early 2000s. I think that was an exciting time for
Yep.
scrapbooking. It was an exciting time for card making. The industry hadn't really changed yet because it was independent store-based, magazine-based. E-commerce was not the force it was as Amazon was really focused on books. And so you didn't really have YouTube, Instagram. You had Flickr, one of the early one of the early social media platforms, but you didn't really have the others strong and vibrant like they are today. And so it was a time where you would go to stores and
Yeah.
you would take classes. And Jennifer's a teacher, right? First and foremost. And so you might take a class from her. You might go to a show and see her. You might go to an event and find her there, and she'd be using Hero Arts
Yep.
or many of the other wonderful products that are out there. And that was kind of the way that you learned back then. Not that it's not the same today. There are wonderful stores you can still go and shop and really touch everything. But also, then what grew was YouTube
Yep.
and being able to learn virtually and virtual events. Amazon got strong. I think in
Yep.
so many ways we can bemoan that fact. Not so many wonderful independent stores out of business, or they had to change and become kind of YouTube channels or websites. But nonetheless, something beautiful because we're a creative industry and we're creative people,
Yep.
really kind of grew again in its place. So maybe you could almost think about it as the branch of a tree was less healthy or wasn't exposed to the sun anymore, and a new
Yep.
branch in a different direction really grew and thrived. And that's what we have today. That's why Hanging with Hero is possible, because all of you can find us live on
Yep.
YouTube. That wasn't possible back in the day. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about today, how that happens, how stores really weathered those times and evolved and changed. And we've got a wonderful guest tonight, a
Yeah.
crafty friend of both of ours that has taken this journey and was around back in the early 2000s doing her thing in wonderful ways. And that person is Jenn Shurkus, who's joining us tonight. Welcome.
Yay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Here we
Thank you
Jen.
are.
for thank you for
Hello.
joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited. This is exciting. Although it does feel really weird to not be teaching.
Yep.
Like
I
like really
bet.
Right.
I should just be coloring some images while I chat with you guys, but
Sure. That's in your
Yep.
blood. That's definitely what you're known for. The crafty chick is someone who's a teacher who does a lot of techniques and designs and works with different products. And it's wonderful to talk with you about how that all started. And
yeah.
what's your origin story? How you got here from uh, the early days before you were in crafting. I think that this is something that is a really valuable and wonderful part of these discussions is hearing that backstory. Like, what got you? What was
Yep.
that transition point that took you from maybe thinking you were going to be a doctor or a firefighter or, whatever you did when you were young, and wanting instead to be kind of in this crafty, creative space that we now know as this wonderful industry. So, first of all, welcome to Hang with Hero, and second, I'm really looking forward to talking about all of this with you, and let's dive right in.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and congratulations on 50 years. That is
Wow.
incredible.
Thank you.
Um, I think Hero Arts has been part of my stamping journey since almost day one, not quite day one. But yeah, I've just always been creative. I'm an only child, only grandchild. So I had to
Mm,
often entertain myself. And so I was always doodling in my bedroom, making posters for my walls. I was always doing something creative. So when looking into college, I was going to be the first in my family to go to college. And I had no idea what to do. But I was
mm,
like, I think I'm just going to be a graphic designer. And I just went with it. And in college, I saw lots of friends change their majors. I went to I grew up in New Hampshire. So I went to Keene State, which was an in state school in New Hampshire. And a lot of my friends were majoring in teaching education. And I watched them and I was like, you guys are crazy. I don't know how you're going to do this.
Yeah.
And
mm.
I laugh now because look who's the teacher. So it's kind of funny
Right.
um, how that kind of all went full circle. But yeah, I think I was a junior, possibly a senior in college. And I had just gone through a fairly large breakup. I mean, don't we
Mm.
all? And I was invited to a Stampin' Up party. And they're like, you got to get out of your room. You got to get out of the funk and let's go to a Stampin' Up party. And so, yeah, so I went to a Stampin' Up party. And then I remember that Christmas, I made holiday cards that literally had every supply and technique I could do on one card.
On one
I mean,
card. Yeah.
I embossed on vellum, I had ribbon, I had a layer of vellum you lifted up to see the scene. I had flock. I had flock on the snowman's hat. I mean, I
Hmm.
had it. Yeah. Um, so
Did
You went
you
all
did you
in.
know what you were getting yourself into by going to that party?
oh no, not at all. No. I was what's funny is going to school for graphic design and fine art, I was very creative. I look at my projects from school and I still think they're somewhat okay. But as like a hobby on the side, I was doing a little bit of scrapbooking. My friend Josie has a scrapbook that I made her that I told her she's never allowed to share because it is so bad. It's all deco scissored, cut around the body shape. Like it's
We
horrible.
all have that.
Oh,
We all have that.
I know, but so yeah, so I don't think I knew. I definitely didn't know what was going to happen by starting to make cards. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So I graduated college in 2001 and I because I put myself through school, I knew I needed to find a job fairly quickly. And I happened to see, and I was living in the Concord, New Hampshire area, and I happened to see an advertisement for a gift shop that was looking for somebody to do their window displays. She did fairly
Mhm.
elaborate window displays on a main street, and
Nice.
also do help with marketing and such. She was actually the owner of the shop. Was Adele, and she was a graphic designer by trade, but she was still doing everything by hand, like paste ups and everything. So she was really looking for me to help her kind of move into the digital era. Um, and yeah, and so that was pretty amazing. It was a really fun job. I learned so much from her. She was a great mentor, a strong female that really guided me. And she had a small stamp section in the gift shop. There was like a wooden personal stamp exchange, stamp shelves with Hero Arts, All Night Media, PSX, all those stamp
Wow.
companies. And
And
she
unusual, right? Unusual to mix scrapbooking and stamping back then.
Yeah. Well, this was actually just a gift shop that had a small
Okay.
stamp section.
Oh,
So,
I see. Yeah,
yeah, it wasn't the store that I managed yet. And
got it.
I mean, gosh, I was like 21 years old, and she was like, "Why don't you teach a stamping class, a beginner stamping class?" And I'm like, "Okay," because you do whatever when you're in your 20s. And
Right.
so yeah, so I started teaching stamping classes there. I wasn't there for very long. I actually moved to Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And that's when I found Colorful Creations, which was the store that I
Right.
managed for
Mhm.
8 years. And it was scrapbooking and stamping. Jane was the owner of that, another fabulous, fabulous person that taught me so much. And so when she opened her store in 1999, everybody was trying to discourage her from having both scrapbooking and stamping in the same
Mm.
store because back then it was
Mhm.
all very separate. But she stuck to her what she wanted. And what's funny is as stamping became a little bit more popular in the early 2000s, all these scrapbooking stores were trying to find room to put stamps
Yep.
in their stores. So she was
Yeah.
like, I got that. I figured that out already. um, but yeah, so I managed that store for 8 years. I loved it. I was there 9 days a week. But I loved every second of it. And I taught a variety of classes. And I think that's kind of what I still carry true to this day. Many people obviously know I teach a lot of lawn fawn classes, which are very whimsical. But I also design with a bunch of other companies, Tim Holtz and Honeybee Stamps and Pink Fresh. And that's actually really how I was at the store. I taught 2 to 3 different classes a week, and it was all a variety of different brands. And I love that. I don't
It's great.
really like to stay in one lane.
Yes. And in so many ways, Stampin' Up, you know, they have a wonderful business model that they've utilized successfully for many decades. And on these kind of hanging with hero, people have started sometimes with their first woodblock stamp from, say, Joann's stores. We've heard that a lot, or a
Yep.
stamping class like you from Stampin' Up. But in some ways, Stampin' Up is maybe the opposite model of our industry. And the way you are as a teacher is that it is a glorious set of options. Why limit yourself?
Yeah.
I can use this, I can use that, I can use this,
Yep.
I can use that. And that is such I think, a gift of this industry. I'll use Lawn Fawn stamps, I'll use Alt New papers, I'll use Hero Arts cling stamps,
Yep.
I'll use Tim Holtz Distress. I mean, why limit it? And so I've always appreciated that about you and your style is I was almost going to say all over the place. I mean that, but only in the
Oh,
best
I
possible way.
I totally am all over the place
Yep.
for sure. And
Yeah.
some people, I mean, I think I posted a card this week with a Simon Says Stamp Timber set. And somebody was like, oh my gosh, those images were it was a big pumpkins that filled the whole background. And they're like, those images were so large. I didn't even think it was a card you made because everybody's so used to seeing me color little images. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, I like to kind of keep everybody on their toes. Something about that is I host an in-person and virtual creative journey art retreat. Hero Arts has been a sponsor since day one. And what I love about that event is many companies sponsor the event, and all the attendees get different product from each sponsor. And we don't make just a Lawn Fawn card or just a Hero Arts card. We mix and mingle it, which I think is how people really do create in their own time. Those of us that aren't in the industry, when it's your hobby, I think you are mixing brands a lot more than maybe you might see in the inspiration. So
Yeah, absolutely. So back in those days, going back to those early stores that you worked with and the teaching that you did, were you teaching with woodblock stamps? Because
oh yeah.
because it
Yep.
wasn't clear yet, really, right? When you first
Yeah.
started.
Kitting for classes back then, I was actually thinking about that today. Kitting for classes back then was so easy
Yep.
because I would just cut like a 2x2 white square, a 4x3 white square, and everybody stamped their own images.
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
then gasp, we all fussy cut it out because there were no dies.
Right.
So
Yep.
kitting was so much easier. I mean, those of you that have taken my Lawn Fawn classes, kits for Lawn Fawn cards are intense.
Yeah.
I have some friends that are kitting for me right now for some in-person classes I'm doing this fall, and it takes them a long time.
Yeah,
Yep.
for
So yeah,
sure. So yeah, interesting. When you started, I mean, that was it was about to be the birth of a bunch of new exciting directions for the industry, including clear
yeah,
and die cuts. Not that die cuts and clear weren't around, because they had actually, as a technology, been around for decades, but they weren't used kind of in our industry
right.
and nor were they possible to make at the price points that you currently enjoy as a
Yep.
consumer. They were just much more expensive. For example, we had steel rule dies that we used to cut out. I showed these before. Let me just grab this. Sorry. And this is a steel rule die that is the same technology that we use to cut out our stamps. This is actually a die punch, and you cut out stamps of those shapes, right? So this is the same technology. It's just that this is mounted and handmade, and so this costs about $300.
And
So you
that's
wouldn't
very
want to pay.
similar. Is that really similar to AccuCut, right?
Yeah,
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right,
I have hundreds of AccuCut dies in my basement.
right.
Wow.
Yeah, that I bring to another in-person event that I do. But yeah, that they're very heavy.
Yes, they're heavy, and ours are handmade because they
Yep.
have to repetitively cut the same
Yep.
rubber out, not paper,
Yep.
rubber, and so they have to be super sharp. Like if you touch that blade, you'll cut yourself. That's how sharp they are. But because they're handmade, it's not possible to make custom designs, in small runs. Like today, we have these metal frame dies that are a lot thinner, maybe less durable for sure,
Yep.
and not handmade. And that really hadn't come yet when you were when you were first kitting those early kits, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we just had like good old Marvy punches, like the
yeah,
stackable Marvy punches to get our scalloped
So many.
squares, scalloped circles, and yeah, I was
Absolutely.
getting carpal tunnel at the age of like 23.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I remember that. That's
Yeah.
why I
yeah.
had kids, so they could help me do all that.
Yeah,
Smart.
that's where I went wrong. I did all my own kitting for the longest time. So, yeah.
Yeah, cats don't do that, so.
No, they don't.
Yes.
So
Um,
what
yeah.
years were you at the store, like roughly?
So I was there. I moved to Cape Cod in 2003, and I actually got a graphic design job at a local print shop. But I walked into Colorful Creations with my portfolio of my handmade cards and things that I had taught at the gift shop that I worked at in New Hampshire. Um, and the owner, Jane, and her husband sat down with me, and her husband happened to own the building where the print shop was. And so he knew my boss, and he just like he was just like, I don't think she's going to love that job. Like, she's way too bubbly and energetic, and she seems
Mm.
to really love crafting. And so, long story short, they basically were like, we want to hire you to manage our store. At that time, they had two different locations.
Wow.
And so they wanted me to manage one of the locations. And I jumped at the chance. I was like, yes, please. And Jane and I hit it off really well. Everybody actually thought I was her daughter, although it wasn't really physically possible. She's not that much older than me. Um, but we just had a blast. We had so much fun. And we were talking about this before we came live, just being part of a small business where you can just try things. You can really do whatever you want. Like, we would come up with really fun events to host for our customers, different classes. We had different guest instructors come in. Allie Edwards taught at the store. Tim Holtz taught at the store. Fred Mullet taught at the store. So we had just a lot of really fun people over the years. And it didn't ever seem like work. It was always just a blast, an absolute
Yeah.
blast.
And where
Yeah.
was the store again? Where did you say
It
it
was
was
here
located?
on Cape Cod in
Yeah.
Okay,
Hyannis, Massachusetts. Yeah.
got it.
And
And
so, oh,
so I was just going to say thank you all for joining us. I see a lot of people, uh, that have joined past hanging with heroes. It's wonderful to see you. If this is your
Yes.
first one, getting 700 people together for an evening discussion is just wonderful, especially with two talented teachers like Jennifer and Jen, who are not necessarily going to show you techniques tonight. So it's wonderful just to talk the industry. And thank you all for joining us. Please post where you're from, too. If you're from Cape Cod or ever visited that store or visited your favorite store or just where you're from, where you're joining us tonight, we love to see kind of all the cities listed. So post where you're from. Sorry, Jen, continue.
no. Well, what I was going to say is back in the day, because I was managing the store, I was able to go to some of the industry trade shows.
Yep.
And I also was very active on Two Peas in a Bucket back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And um, somebody that I always loved and her style always stood out to me was Jennifer. So I semi stalked her a little bit. Um, but I just absolutely loved her style in that she mixed stamping on her scrapbook layouts back so like not many people were doing that. And at the time, she wasn't married yet. So I just feel like I connected a little bit more with her because, again, I think in the scrapbooking industry, it was a lot of
Married
women with
kids.
families and everything.
Hmm.
So, but I was lucky enough to go to some of the trade shows where I got to take classes with Jennifer and Tim Holtz. And I will always attest to being a good instructor because they kind of taught me how to do things back in the day. I think they're both amazing instructors, and I kind of just absorbed all of how they kind of kept a class running smoothly, how they got things done, you know, in a timely manner. And so, yeah, so I have some fun photos we'll share in a little bit, but I dug up one that I don't even think Jennifer has seen probably since.
So it's funny because I feel the same about you, because I would teach scrapbooking classes, and we would do like scrapbooks and like a card with it up at a store here in Dayton, like just north of me. And you came to teach, and
Yeah.
I took one of your classes, and I was inspired by the way you taught the stamping classes, because stamping back then, stamping was hard to teach with because you'd have to bring so many ink pads and rubber stamps. They were big, and it
Uh-huh.
was complicated. And I went to take a class from you. I remember I took it with Jana,
Yeah.
and I remember exactly where I was sitting, and you just had it so organized and so easy flowing, and I absolutely loved it. So I would argue that I learned a lot of teaching things from you too. So I don't know
Thank
what year that would have been. I have no idea.
That was probably, I'm going to say probably around 2007,
Okay.
2008,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
ish. I wrote some dates down in front of me, just so I could, again, I said on my Instagram stories before this, the only thing I wasn't looking forward to was it's making me realize how old I am. Because
You're
I'm
not as old as us, so don't worry about it.
still,
No,
you know, I'm
definitely
still
not.
20 something in my eyes. So when I start talking about being in the industry for 20 years, that doesn't really work out so much anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Aaron
I
Um,
say that too.
wasn't even born yet, right?
Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so just again, being able to teach at the store so much, I learned a lot. I still say to this day, every class that I teach, I learn how to do it better the next time. And I
Hmm.
learn from my students. Maybe I didn't explain something well. I'll learn how to refine it. And, you know, pre-pandemic, I was teaching the same classes over and over and over. So if you got me towards the end of a teaching season, you got like the golden class.
Yeah, for
Nice.
sure.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. So, what did you do after the store closed then?
So the store closed in 2011, or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, 2011. And that's when I say I got my big girl job. um
Hmm.
I kind of panicked. I was single here on the Cape, kind of living paycheck to paycheck. You don't make a whole lot of money managing a paper crafting store, but I loved, again, every second of it. And so I kind of panicked and I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't have a portfolio for graphic design because I never really did that officially, professionally. I did a lot of design stuff for the store, but I ended up landing a job actually at Providence College. I was a web designer there, which is kind of a whole nother funny story we don't really need to get into. But long story short, my work study boss from college reach out to me because he was looking for a web designer, and so he ended up being my boss at Providence College. So you just never know, when something will come back. But so I commuted from Cape Cod to Providence, Rhode Island for 2.5 years, which for those of you guys that aren't from this area, it wasn't a stressful drive. It wasn't like driving up into Boston traffic, but it ate up a lot of my time a day. And
Yeah.
so it kind of burnt me out. So I moved to Rhode Island for a couple years. It was really, really hard for me to leave Cape Cod. Many of you guys know I am a part time mermaid. And I absolutely love being close to the ocean. And even though Rhode Island's the ocean state, when you live in Providence, you're not near the beach like you are here on Cape
Yeah.
Cod. So that was really, really hard. Um, my boyfriend and I had just started dating. Chris, he moved in with me in Rhode Island. And then I had an opportunity to work for a magazine here on Cape Cod. And I jumped at the chance. I was like, let's get back to Cape Cod. So Chris and I moved from Rhode Island back to Cape Cod.
Hmm.
Um, and I only worked for the magazine for about a year and a half. It was technically a 4-day work week. So what happened was I would work until like 2 or 3 p.m. on a Thursday, and I'd jump in my car, drive up to Logan Airport in Boston, fly out to a store, and I would teach Friday, Saturday, Sunday, fly home wicked late Sunday night, and then go to work Monday morning. And so I did that for a year and a half,
Hmm.
and I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Wow.
um, and so I was about to turn 40, and I looked at Chris and I'm like, I can't do both of these things anymore. And Chris is a little bit older than me and a little bit wiser. And so he was like, well, which one do you really love? And I'm like, well, I love teaching. And he's like, well, then just do it. He's like, just do it.
Wow.
We can eat ramen and stay home all the time and we'll figure it out. And so I quit my big girl job and the security of having, a business pay you a consistent paycheck.
Yep.
Hmm.
And I went out on my
Scary.
own in 2017. So, and I
I
started
remember
creative.
that.
So, yeah,
I remember telling you could do it. You can do it.
there was
No doubt.
I have a lot of really good friends in the industry, you being one of them, but that were definitely cheerleading me on. And then I think it was like 5 months later, Chris lost his job. So
Oh
I was
gosh.
Oof.
like, oh my gosh. But
Yeah.
it all worked out. It all worked out. Yeah, crazy.
Well, that's a wonderful story, and I think the industry's better for you taking that plunge and really going out and doing the creative thing as opposed to sticking with a job that is consistent pay. And I totally understand that, but I'm thankful that you took that plunge, Jennifer,
Me
that you
too.
encouraged her and all the
Mm-hmm.
people that did, because I think man, what would it be out with, what would the industry be like without you on YouTube and teaching in stores and doing the various events that you do? So, congratulations. We talked about this off stage
Thank
too,
you.
that maybe, the creatives that are in this industry that make all of us want to do techniques and stamping and pick up a stamp at Joanne or take a Stampin' Up class, however we get started. All of us have that creative bug, and I think that's what unites us all as a community. And just maybe that attribute of being creative also means we're slightly crazy,
A
which
little
is
bit.
good because it's
Mm-hmm.
means a little innovative, willing to try things, being a little different with the way that we approach life. And I think that is such a wonderful trait. And I think, Jen, you definitely embody that in just the best way possible with the techniques that you teach and the ideas that you come up with and the being all over the place again in the best possible way. And so I think that those attributes of you were there in 2017 when you took that plunge. So I think it was a good bet to make.
Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you. Yeah. I think what really kind of helped pick up steam a little bit in my teaching is while I was managing the store here on the Cape, there were still a lot of stores here in the New England area.
Yeah.
Um, there was Ink About It in Westford, Mass. There was absolutely everything. Kate Farraker,
Yep.
which we know
I
her very
love that
well, in
store.
Topsfield, Mass.
Yes.
Stamp Passion in Latham, New York. There was a ton of stores, and Jane, my boss at my store, she was totally cool with on my days off driving and teaching at all of these independent brick and mortar stores. And so that's what I did in my free time from managing the store. Um, and what was really cool about that is I really started to build this community of people. There's several people that are still coming to my in-person events that I met a million years ago from those classes, or they're taking my online classes. And so, but as those stores started to close, I
Yeah.
wanted to still stay connected with everybody. And I actually reached out to Kelly Marie from Lawn Fawn because I was actually teaching with Lawn Fawn stamps without them even knowing who I was. And there was a local trade show was coming in the area, the Collins show, and I used to attend it as a store manager.
Yep.
But I reached out to Kelly and Mike and I was like, do you guys go to the Collins show? And they're like, we do, you know, and I'm like, okay, well, do you teach classes? And they're like, we haven't. And I was like, well, how about I teach a class for you? And so that's how I first met Kelly Marie. It was in 2013. I picked her up at Logan Airport and
Wow.
we drove over to just, you know, a suburb of Boston and we did classes for retail stores. And so that's how I started to really meet a lot of store owners all over
Yep.
North America. And that's when they were like, I'd really love for you to teach at my store. And so that's how
Yep.
I got really busy with teaching.
And that was a Sue Gilman show, right?
Yep.
It was actually Collins by then.
Oh,
I
Collins
it
don't,
was
by
Tim
then.
yeah,
Collins.
I think,
Okay,
yeah, I think Tim had already purchased it from Sue, but yeah.
got it.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh,
Sherry
yeah.
and I
So
used to go
Sue.
there for Hero Arts for many, many, many years. Many
Yep.
years.
Yes.
It was fun. It
It
was
was
fun.
Yeah.
fun. We had a lot of fun.
Yep.
That's what I was going to say. Is that Sherry and Jennifer? Because Sherry Carroll now of Simon Says Stamps used to
Yep.
work full time at Hero Arts, and she would recruit Jennifer to be the star, the teacher, and we would go to those events from Sue Gilman to eventually Tim
Mm-hmm.
Collins. That was all for retailers. So
Yeah.
remember when Jen's talking about this in that 2008 to 2011 period, that's really the period where 2Ps really is rising. Archivers is really at its strength.
Yep.
But at the same time, Amazon is as well. And there's a biting recession that hits right around 2008. And so that combination of all of that for independence was brutal. And so a
Yep.
lot of wonderful independent stores and wonderfully creative owners decided to do different things or close their stores. And so you did start getting precipitous decline in stores. And because of that, YouTube began to rise and the social media that we have today really grew. Stampin' Up is still around and still does their thing, but competitors that we talk about like PSX, they went out of business. Personal Stamp Exchange was, wonderful competitor of ours and friends, and they closed their doors. So a lot of change then, and change can lead to innovation. Change can lead to new directions, and so I think it is very important to recognize that even by 2013 there was a lot of stores because I think that things had begun to take on new directions, and they realized that having you, Jen, come and teach in their store was vital.
Yeah.
It was extremely important in order to attract customers that maybe used to have a store near their house that had closed, and so now they wanted to pick up those other customers, even if they had to drive maybe an hour or two where they used to drive 5 or 10 minutes.
Yep.
But nonetheless, that vivacious, exciting, innovative, technique-driven card making class was still the heart and soul of our industry, and you were at the vanguard teaching them. So you had said off stage that you sometimes would travel maybe half the year, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
In terms of weekends, half the weekends of the year in order to
Yeah.
teach.
Yeah. Like 3 weekends a year, I was teaching my in-person events here on the Cape. But yeah, like 20 weekends a year, I was traveling all over North America. So all over the US and Canada. And I had a long, long list of stores patiently waiting for me to come. I don't travel in the summer because, like I said, I am a part-time mermaid. So, and when you live on Cape Cod, you really just want to enjoy those summer months. So I would give myself the summer to not travel. And then obviously holidays. But any other time, I was definitely teaching all until the pandemic hit, really.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. And so, what, 2013 through 2020? So 7 years on the road, basically, every other
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah, if not
Yeah.
every. I mean, it was pretty
Yep.
much like this coming into this season, I would travel the weekend after Labor Day weekend, and I would travel every single weekend until the first weekend of December, except for Thanksgiving. I was
Yeah.
gone.
There's got to be a name for that. A road
Crazy.
warrior is what comes to mind, but stamp
Yeah.
traveler, technique purveyor, I don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
I,
That's funny.
yeah. We were talking about how we're a little crazy, so
Yes. That's true. Yes, and
yeah,
that feeds into it for sure, but crazy in only the best way. And again,
yeah,
I think we aren't actually crazy. I think people in the corporate America are the ones that are crazy, looking at us, calling us crazy. That's
for
that's really
sure,
the situation.
for sure.
Because who wouldn't want to do things that bring joy and creativity and innovation and that wow factor every weekend? I mean, of course, if you could spend the time to do that, wouldn't you rather do that? And so I
Oh,
think
for
our
sure.
industry, yeah,
I
is
yeah,
there.
I love
Yeah.
teaching. I think it's amazing. I love inspiring people to use the stuff that they're purchasing. I love when I see the light bulb go off and they kind of figure something out that maybe they were struggling with on their own. Yeah, I absolutely love teaching.
Yeah. I think that too, the magic of classes, and again, I'm not that creative. I leave that to my wife and the design team at Hero Arts and our creative team and all of you. Although I make my card now and then, and I even have taken stamping classes. It does feel like that one of the joys of taking a stamping class, at least from my experience, my limited experience, is it is that you do you. There's no
Yep.
right way. There's no lines you have to stay within. There's no specific color or paper or technique you
Yep.
have to use. It is that expression of yourself. And I think that is such a beautiful part of this from the first time stamper all the way up to the advanced. And I think that that is kind of such an exciting part of our industry. Speaking of that, 750 people on a Wednesday night. What a wonderful place to be and to hang out. So thank you all for joining. Thank you too for sharing where you're from. I heard and I saw, I should say, people from all over the U.S. I also saw from every state, it seemed. I don't know which state was missing, but it seemed like most, if not all, of the states. So, what a wonderful community and group. Thank you for all joining. I even saw a few international people that said somebody from
Yeah.
Canada, somebody from London, and somebody from Oslo, Norway. Did I see that right? You're like 9 hours ahead. That's like in the middle of the night for you. So, thank you too for joining. That is wonderful. And people had some ideas. I think a craft cruiser was one of them that I
Oh,
saw of what you
There we
could call
go.
yourself as you were hitting every other weekend or every weekend.
Yep.
And yeah, and a shout out to the people in California. That's where I am. So San Francisco, I saw elk and different places. So and of course Jennifer's in Ohio. So hello to the Ohioans as well. She's
Lots
probably
of us.
watching the Reds in the background there.
Yeah, we're winning by a lot. It's crazy.
Ooh,
I looked
nice.
up at one point, it was 9-0, and I'm like, whoa, something's going on here. I don't know what's
That's
happening.
that's a good
you've
day.
shut down baseball season in Boston here. We're just gonna wait for
Yeah,
spring
well,
training.
There we go.
we should too. We should too.
Yeah.
So tell us about your online classes, Jen, because I don't,
Yeah.
if anybody, like I know many people have said they've seen you teach, but for those who haven't, when Jen teaches, like I've seen her teach coloring classes, And she makes Copic coloring like the most approachable thing when it can be so incredibly overwhelming. I remember watching, you were teaching, I think it was for Scrapbook and Cards Today, and
Yeah.
you were teaching lawn fawn coloring, coloring with lawn fawn images. And I'm like, this is one of the most complicated things in crafting, Copic markers can be. And it was the most calm and chill and approachable class. And I was just blown away. And I've seen you work before, but not not necessarily in a class, like teaching an online class. So tell us about what you do with online classes. And I put a link to your class site and your shirt in the description below, because you sell some fun shirts like that. But tell us about your classes and your approach with your classes.
Well, I think one thing is I have been teaching with Copics, which are alcohol-based markers for, oh my gosh, since
Long time.
2005.
You were a baby.
Yeah, I know. I was like still not onto solid foods yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
But so I've had a lot of practice, and any artist will tell you if you keep practicing, you'll get it. Like Dina Wakely tells me that all the time. I always want to sketch amazing faces like her. And she's like, well, if you keep practicing, you'll get it. She's so amazing. But so I've practiced for a very, very long time, and I've been teaching Copic coloring for almost as long. And right before 2020, the pandemic, Kelly Marie and I were actually chatting, and we were just chatting about how my classes were going. And I was like, they're going really well. I'm like, however, the coloring is what's taking everybody the longest. They just are feeling like they have to have it exactly like mine. They're stressing a little bit so much about the coloring that other stuff isn't getting done. And I'd really like to figure out a way to make this more enjoyable for everybody. So Kelly Marie and I were chatting back and forth about it. And between her and I kind of brainstorming, we came up with this idea of me creating coloring guides. Everybody would always have a card in front of them so they could see the card when they were making the card in class, but not necessarily the step-by-step and how to get the layering and the blending of alcohol-based markers.
Right.
And so I went into 2020 so excited. I stamped out many sets of the same coloring guides. I colored them all, step 1, step 2, step 3. And my approach to coloring with alcohol-based markers has always been a very easy approach. I started coloring with these markers that are very, very expensive when I was in my 20s and I was poor. So I never would ever tell myself I was going to own all 300 of them. For the longest time, I personally only had 36. To this day, I only have like 120, but I don't
have that many.
Like 75. I do not have them all. And so I tell people, like, you don't have to have them all to do beautiful coloring.
True.
My coloring tends to be 2 marker coloring, not 35 marker coloring for images. And granted, I'm mostly coloring smaller images, even if it's not lawn fawn. If Hero Arts asked me to guest design, I'm gravitated towards smaller images. So it's easy to do beautiful coloring with just 2 markers. So I went into 2020 in my in-person classes with my coloring guides. I hand did them all. I laminated them. They were ready to go, like full sets for each table. And then March 2020 happened. And and I wasn't allowed to get on a plane anymore and make my income that was paying all of my bills. So, but part of being a small business is you just kind of dust yourself off and figure it out. So
True.
So the first thing I did was actually sell a lot of leftover kits I had from all the years of teaching. They were hidden everywhere in my house. Every door I opened, there were more kits. So I spent like April to August getting through all of those. But then in the fall of 2020, I taught my first online class, included those coloring guides in a handout. I made a really nice handout so people could know what was glittered, what was popped up, so they could feel like they were in class with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just all snowballed from there. It's
Yeah. Well, that's a great story. And I think the innovative part of that is small business is all about pivoting, and it's all about creativity. And it's
Amen.
always find about, rethinking what you think to be true. Because
Yep.
what you know today is wrong tomorrow. And
yeah,
I think that it's such a tribute to all the independent stores that are in business today, all of the stories like yours, Jen, that you had to make do with what you had,
Yep.
and you had to make changes with the circumstances that you were given.
yep,
And it is wonderfully creative. And just know, for all of you stampers out there, there's a wonderful story like that behind every business that you buy from.
Yep.
for sure.
Um, but I think that our industry, again, not to continue to toot the horn of our industry, is even more unique in that respect, because these stories, Jennifer, that you and I have been able to hear on the Hanging with Hair are just wonderful, and yours, Jen,
Yep.
is the same way. I mean, you had to be creative. You had to change. You were traveling every other weekend, and all of a sudden, in one swoop, you could have never predicted it. There was a global pandemic.
Yep,
Couldn't
yep.
get on a
That was
plane.
that was not on my bingo card that year. Not.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that we're learning in these Hanging with Heroes calls. And it comes up on every one. And I'm just now kind of noticing, I guess, is everybody has had a story of where they've had to pivot, where something happened. A lot of us, it was the pandemic, but there were other things where something happened. Heidi Swaps shared some of her, she had to pivot. Something happened that impacted their business, and you could either kind of crumble and point fingers and blame others or blame things, or you can pivot and
Yep,
figure out, like, just don't waste any time, just pivot and figure out what you need to do to make things better. And
for
Jen
sure.
did that. And I think we've heard that from a lot of these Hanging with Hero, is one of the
So
things
true.
that all of these people we've talked to have in common is they had to pivot. And like for me, it was, I used to travel teaching too, not as much as Jen, but I loved it. I loved teaching in stores. But then I had my son, and he was little, and I needed to figure it out. I had to pivot. And that's when I started doing videos. And then when with Lila, I had postpartum so bad that I had to pivot to not be able to travel anymore and count on going to shows for companies. And so I started doing online card classes with Christina. So it's instead of like a woe is me, or pointing fingers at somebody else, you just pivot and figure out what you need to do to keep your business going. And I admire it, because you've done that a few times along the way.
Yeah,
And
and I think that's what's kind of so cool about this industry is it is filled with very creative people.
mhm.
So I think for us to have to pivot or come up with a different idea, it's almost, I mean, it was hard. I'm not going to say it wasn't
Oh
hard.
no, yeah,
Yeah, I worked the hardest I've ever worked in my whole entire life. But
absolutely.
like, being a creative person, you have those creative ideas, right? And I think that that is always really helpful. Even if some of the ideas are a little crazy, a little out there, I think creative people are a little bit more brave to try them, or
Yeah,
at least I am. So, but yeah, I saw a couple questions. If you don't mind, if I could just rapid fire
go
answer
for it.
them.
Sure,
Somebody
please
asked
do.
what does it mean to be a part-time mermaid? It
Yeah, I
just
wrote that one
means
down.
that I literally sit at the beach, I beach comb, I read books, I people watch, I swim. I just be near that ocean as much as possible. I do not dress up as a mermaid for birthday parties or anything like that, which sometimes people think.
It's her
Um,
hobby. It's your hobby.
Yeah, it's just my hobby. It's
Yep.
my escape. We're only a couple miles from the beach, so we're very, very lucky. And then a couple of people
Nice.
asked if, how I was able to travel so much. Do I have children? And I don't have children. I have kitties. I have four-legged children, but
Mhm.
they're pretty independent. And when I'm away, Chris makes sure that they're well taken care of. And then I saw another question just about how to get started with coloring with Copics. I
Mm-hmm.
think in this day and age, when we talk about Copic marker coloring, it really is just alcohol marker based coloring because there's so many brands of alcohol markers out there. Olos are out there now, which I think are so great because they're
Yep.
a bit more affordable than Copic. So it kind of makes the sticker tag a little bit less scary. But whether you're coloring with Copics or Olos or Spectrum Noirs, I think you can follow my approach to coloring. And so if you go to my website and you just search Copic 101, you'll find a free blog post where I have a really great live you can watch. And then I also have an online class too. But before that, there's a really great blog post with a lot of resources on it.
Got it. And
Great.
Creative Chick, you can Google that and you'll find Jenn or Shurkus.com.
Yep.
And then, of course, certainly look on YouTube because I think there's just
Yep.
brilliant and beautiful content. Let me just take this pivot thing, maybe where it shouldn't go, but I'm going to take it. And that is that pivoting is key in this industry, especially around crafting, especially during the period that we talked about the difficult recession where you had two peas in a bucket and archivers like, I mean, just pillars of our industry go out of business. You had many independents go out of business, and people had to really pivot and change. And I think there are
Mm-hmm.
wonderful creative ways, just like you did, Jenn, during the pandemic. And I think that we have also talked about crafting being really therapeutic. For so many people, it is therapy. The community, the friendship, the giving, the joy that comes from that. And so I think that it's healthy to do these things. And here's where probably not medically qualified to say this, but I think we're all younger because of it. So I think you can take 10 years off your age, Jenn. I don't think
Absolutely.
you're as old as yes.
I'll
I think
take it.
because of that work, you're younger for it. And I think that I think that that crafting therapy does make you younger. I've actually got a family member who's got Alzheimer's, and crafting does make a huge difference with memory, with
Right.
coordination, with all these things. So I do think that there are physical benefits. I think that there are mental benefits to the therapy that crafting brings. Again, I'm not a doctor, and so don't take my word for it, but I firmly believe that. Um, all right, so while we've got a break and while Jenn has queued it up, by the way, we on these Hanging with Heroes want to really thank all of you and thank the community for everything that you do because you're such an important big part of allowing Jenn and Jennifer to be the teachers they are, allowing Hero Arts to be the company that it is. The 50 years, really, more than probably anything else. My wife's creativity, my creativity, it's really been your receptiveness to those things that we've built and offered. So we have a sale, a 24-hour flash sale, 50% off in Jenn's honor, ocean and beach products. So beach
Yes.
Yay.
theme products. We've
Look at
created a
that
special
mermaid right there
category
in
on
the
our
front.
website
I
just
love
for
it.
you, Jenn, because
I love
we
it. Thank
want to
you.
honor you and everything beach and ocean. So it's a mix of many different products from cling to wood to transfers to dyes to stencils, all with the same beach and ocean theme. 50% off, 24 hours only starting now, going till 5 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. So again, a big thank you to all of you. It's funny that ocean and beach themes are traditionally top sellers for us, like more than
Not
anything else. So
surprised.
Yep.
yeah. So it's probably because of you. It's because you've been pushing it for so long.
Well, what I was going to say is Libby is my trade show bestie. She and
Yep.
Yeah.
I literally, we've been at some doozies of trade shows. When she worked for Hero Art, she and I, it would always be her and I. Always her and I. So we call ourselves trade show besties, but anytime Hero Arts had a ocean themed release, she would reach out to me and ask if I would
Yep.
guest design. So after this
Yes.
live tonight, I'll make sure on my Instagram stories, I'll share a bunch of links to blog posts, because all those pictures that were in the graphic, I have lots of
You've done stuff,
inspiration with
yeah.
all. And if you just go to my website and search Hero Arts, 98% of the samples are going to be beach themed.
Yes.
That's a good
And
thing.
thank you to Libby. Thank you to
Yeah.
Libby for that assist too. And she's in the comments
Yep.
joining us
Yeah.
tonight as well.
Love
And
me.
yeah, we always love to see our marketing team. Jen loves to see when you do your thing with a Hero Arts product. I'm sure all companies feel the same way, but it's tons of fun, and people, our designers feel, oh my God, Jen used my product, my design,
Aw.
my illustration, and our marketing team tries to repost it because it's fun, and we all love beach as well, especially since I'm right here in Richmond, in California, right on the water as well.
Yep.
And yes, let me also say that we have some giveaways tonight.
Yep.
So again, thank you all for joining. We typically do giveaways. We randomly pick from the participants giveaways. We have sponsors from Ranger, scrapbook.com, and Hero Arts gives away $50 gift certificate, plus each one who wins that Hero Arts gift certificate can give $25 to a friend. And so we have those winners. And Jen has generously gave 2 for her website as well. And so Mike will post that right now. Congratulations to all the winners. Be sure to reach out to info@heroarts.com to claim your prize. Congratulations to everyone. $50 can go a long way on Jen's site. She's got a lot of great stuff.
Yes.
So congratulations to everyone. Thank you again to Ranger and scrapbook.com. And we're actually going to do one more thing just to celebrate with all of you, as over the next 24 hours for the non-live, and probably I'm talking to the wrong audience, but because you're all here, but for the non-live people who comment and watch the replay, we're also going to give away over the next 24 hours to $50 gift certificates with $25
Nice.
friend add-on gift certificates as
Sweet.
well, because yeah, a number of people have said that they like watching the replay and they're so sad they don't get to
Yeah.
participate in the prize opportunities, including some people who are both deaf and blind, and that way they can't necessarily enjoy the live in the same way. So we're gonna honor people who watch the replay as well.
Nice.
And then finally, if you haven't seen the Hero Arts September release, it's Halloween. It's tons of
Oh my
fun.
gosh, I love it.
Really check it out. Yes, it's our new Hero Studio, which is our club subscription program, which you can now buy the kit. You can get the 6 options, whatever you like from those, from a card kit to a cling of the month to a die of the month, or subscribe for October, which is going to be, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but it is definitely holiday card making. And so you can subscribe or buy September's or past kits as well. Okay. With that, so Jen, how do you now, with COVID, changing the way that you traveled and designed your business? So how has your business changed? Obviously, you've gone to YouTube and been much more intensive in virtual events. But talk us through that. Like, how did that develop?
Yeah, so it's funny. I think because I've always been a little techie and I've always embraced social media from the beginning, every year on my to-do list for the year was to teach online classes. It's been on my to-do list forever. Especially, I was a web designer, so it wasn't that I was afraid of the technology. It was that I didn't have the time. Again, because I was traveling and teaching so much, the days that I was home, I was just regrouping or designing projects with the brands that I work with and stuff to get that posted. So what the pandemic did was give me time to figure it all out. And I have to say, it was a little scary. Lots of mistakes were made. I learned a lot. But I have to say, I have some of the best class attendees ever. They're so patient with me. We're constantly crashing my website during registrations, and if it could go wrong, it's gone wrong.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I don't think I mean, I've had a couple not so nice people, but above and beyond, everybody has been so patient and so supportive. And I love that. And I love the community that, we've created together over the years. It's so fun for me. I mentioned this during the Crop and Create event with Scrapbooking Cards Today, because it is such a large event with almost, over 3,000 attendees. You
True.
wouldn't think sitting in your room here by yourself that you would feel the energy that you feel when you teach in person. It's a different energy for sure. And I
Yep.
still love teaching in person. Nothing will ever take that away. But I was really, really surprised at the energy that you still feel in an online class or an online event. And it really just became a lot of fun. Again, seeing familiar names and people who have never met each other in person but are meeting in class
Mm-hmm.
because they're both taking the same class and they're chatting together while we're working, and it's incredible. I never would have guessed that that's how it would evolve, honestly. And I couldn't have asked for it to go more smoothly, minus all the hiccups and bumps along the way.
Those are
Right.
just lessons learned and
Yep.
opportunities to pivot. We all do
I'm
that.
thankful
We all
I
do that.
have a web company that helps me now. And every time we crash my website or something happens, I just tell them I'm thankful because people want to do what I'm offering. I could be putting all of this out there and just have
Mm-hmm.
crickets. So every time I'm never mad. I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. It's all a
Yep.
learning experience. But I'm so thankful for the support I've had over all of the years. Actually, one of the winners of the prizes tonight to my store, Janice Arponen, she's been taking my classes since the beginning. She actually lives here on Cape Cod. She used to come to the store.
Nice.
So, but I'm just
That's
so
great.
thankful for everybody that supported me, whether they just discovered me this year or they've been taking classes with me since I managed the store. I'm very, very lucky. And I don't ever forget that.
Yeah. That's great. Somebody asked how you how you got your mojo back after COVID, but it just seems like that's one of your superpowers is that you always seem to have the mojo. At least that's what it looks like online on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yep.
Well, what's funny, what's funny is fall of 2019, I did an in-person art retreat. Um, and I was always doing one in the fall and one in the spring. And I remember at the fall
Mm,
2019 one, I said to everybody, I'm not going to host one in the spring. I need a little bit of a breather. I need a little bit of a break. I don't want to burn myself out because if I burn myself out, I'm not going to be good for anybody, which I'm so
sure.
thankful because I didn't have to reschedule or refund or cancel
Wow.
that event in the spring of 2020. Now, I did have to figure out, I also host Crop on the Cape, which is an event where over 300 people attend. And that was in March of 2020. So I did have to kind of figure all that out, canceling that. But I try just really hard to listen to myself. And there are days that it's hard that I'm like, ugh, I don't want to create another
Yeah,
project.
for sure.
But what's inspiring is all the different companies I get to work with. So I
Hmm.
feel like I'm able to make a Lawn Fawn card, then I'm making a Tim Holtz card, then I'm making a Hero Arts card. I just love all the variety that I get to play with. So it doesn't ever get stale. It never gets stale.
Yeah,
That's awesome. We also have
that
some
is awesome.
pictures. Should we show some pictures?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, let's do that.
All right, let's see what Mike's got. I don't know that they're in the order. Oh, look at
Oh, well, there you
those.
go. Those are some ocean cards with all the goodies that are on sale at Hero Arts right now.
Those are
Look at that.
Love
fun.
it.
I
That
love
top
those
right one's
colors.
awesome.
I'm
Yes.
also slightly obsessed with distress watercolor pencils. So if you see any watercoloring happening, That's with the distress watercolor pencils.
Nice.
Nice.
So that is the stamping section at the gift shop that I managed in New Hampshire. So that was in 2001. That plastic, those two spinners, I think were directly from Hero Arts. I think you paid for
Yes.
them, got them stocked with Hero Arts products. But the wooden shelf in the background, that reddish wooden shelf, is Personal Stamp Exchange, PSX. But you can see
Wow.
the color
Yes.
box and ink pads on the wall. Like, it just cracks
Oh
me up.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
those
there's
towers that
Judith supplies on that
them.
spinner.
Oh yeah. We called them very creatively the Hero Tower. It wasn't not a very
Okay,
creative
yep.
name. But we made small, yeah, in small quantities, those towers for stores, and we could never keep them in stock because they were handmade and hand built before we finally farmed that out. So those are some of the early days. You don't see those anymore because we don't make them anymore. But that is a
Yeah.
cool picture.
I thought you'd appreciate that. So that's baby Jen there, me on the right in the blue tank top. And that's the room that I would teach my beginner stamping classes. We could only
Wow.
hold like 6 people, but I loved it. It was so fun. And this was a pajama party. That's why I'm in my pajama pants and a tank
Hey,
top.
there's nothing wrong with pajama pants. I've got pizza ones on
No,
right now.
right? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that was probably like one of the first classes.
Oh
And
my
there's Jennifer
gosh.
and I in 2005.
That is
I don't know if
hilarious.
you've seen that photo, Jen,
I don't think I have.
but
We're babies.
that's at the Sheridan in Framingham. That is at a Collins show. And I was
Those were so
so
fun.
excited to meet Jennifer because I just found her so, I mean, I still to this day, but she was like always so inspiring.
Wow. Such babies. Look at that.
And so this is Colorful Creations when I first moved to Cape Cod. So I would say this is 2003, 2004. We were a Red Heart Mrs. Grossman store. So you see all those
Mm-hmm.
rolled
Hmm.
stickers behind me. Now, because our store was on the East Coast, we actually had a really hard time getting displays to hold all the product. So many stores were in the Midwest and the West Coast, and it was so expensive to ship displays to the East Coast. So Jane, her husband Joel, made a lot of displays for us. So he actually made that sticker display. And it was an absolute nightmare when kids came into the store. I'll just tell you that.
Yeah. Mrs. Grossman stickers, by the way, were just up the road here from Hero Arts before they went out of business. And that was also a mother-son company founded by the
Yes.
mom, and the son took over.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
just, yeah.
Such a cool company. Because we were a Red Heart store, we were invited to all the like elite parties at the trade show and stuff. And it was always so much fun.
Yeah.
So I think this picture doesn't really need an introduction. But the funny thing about this picture is for years and years and years, we asked him to come teach at the store, which every store did. We were all in line, patiently waiting, not so patiently waiting. And when he finally I answered the phone and he's like, "Hey, this is Tim Holtz." I'm like, "No, it's not." He's like, "Yeah, it is." And I've already taken lots of classes with him. And he's like, "I'd love to come teach at your store." And I'm like, "What?" But what we did is we created this cardboard picture of him to promote signing up for his class. And
That's
he
cute.
always found it to be the scariest thing ever because it just wasn't proportional. So yeah, so here's him and Mario. This is
Can
probably
we
around 2008.
can we discuss
That's
how
great.
he ages in reverse?
I know,
That's not
right?
fair. That's just not
I know.
fair.
You love Mario
Goodness.
too.
Yep.
It's so true.
So this is where my art retreats were born. This is when Chris and I lived in Rhode Island, and we lived in a 900 square foot loft apartment in an old factory building. And you can kind of see the exposed brick And what you can't see is on the right are some shelves with my wood mounted stamps. And normally where those tables and chairs are where our couch and TV were. But when I first moved into this space, everybody was like, it's so inspiring. It's so inspiring. And a lot of the stores in New England were closing. So I said to my boyfriend, Chris, I was like, do you mind if I just rent some tables and chairs and invite my crafty friends over for, some card making? And he's like, sure. Little did he know, it became this big ordeal, and it became the Creative Journey art retreats. I have product stuck on the back wall there. There's probably Lawn Fawn, Hero Arts, Newton's Nook, all let me do a little pop-up shop. And I want to say 6 people per table. So you can see there's 3 tables. We were all very close quarters, but it was a lot of fun.
That's great.
And
Whoa.
this is the Creative Journey Art Retreat now. So this was last November, here on
Big.
Cape Cod at the Pelham House, which is the wall of windows on the left looks out to the ocean. So I totally pinched myself all weekend that I got to step on stage, teach everybody so many fun things all weekend, looking out to the ocean all weekend. It was incredible. And I'll be hosting another one of those this November too. And I just love it so much.
Wow.
And it's
Good
clearly
luck.
grown. We have more tables now.
Absolutely.
Right.
Look at that.
So the other event that I host is called Crop on the Cape. We just celebrated our 25th year. It started in 1999 by a store that was in New Hampshire, and she decided she wanted to do a retreat on Cape Cod for her customers. And then when her store closed, she sold the event to my old store owner, Jane from Colorful Creations. And then when Jane closed, she sold the event to me. So I've been involved with the event since probably 2004. So probably 20 of the 25 years. But there's over 300 people that attend, and these are their swag bags that everybody gets. And again, Hero Arts has always been an amazing sponsor for this event as well. Um, I love Hero Arts. I email them and I'm like, do you want to, sponsor this crazy event I'm doing? And they're like, sure.
Happy to help
Look at
anytime.
that.
And so this is the registration desk for Crop on the Cape. And that event is in March every year. Registration opens in November, but the event is in March. And it's kind of like an old school crop where you do have a space to work on your own projects. But then there's a variety of classes that you can sign up for. And then there's a ton of different vendors that come to sell products. And it's a blast. It's a whirlwind of a weekend, but it's so fun.
Look at
All
that.
right.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that history and the current stories. The
it was fun.
you can
Dig through the
yeah, you can
photos.
visit Shurkus.com to see her events. She's got all those listed on the website. So remember November if you want to go to the March event. A few questions that came up
Yeah.
while you were sharing those. Uh, yes, Tim Holtz. He did do a show. So actually, the first one that Jennifer and I hosted includes Tim Holtz as the first crafty friend
Yep.
to join us. So you're welcome to watch back at that. And he talks about kind of his journey and how he used to visit stores and now since COVID does much more YouTube. Mrs. Grossman's, yes, just up the road here. They're in wine. They were in wine country. They actually still are a company, but now they just do wine labels. They used to do wine labels
Oh,
as kind of a side business, and so they've kind of stopped doing all the labels or the stickers that we know today that kind of really were Mrs. Grossman's, and so they have pivoted as a company,
I didn't
and they
know
were
that.
longtime friends. Yeah,
I didn't
and
know about the wine labels.
yes, wine labels are people pick their wines who,
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
from the look and feel of a wine label. So a wine label is an art. Like that
for sure.
is a significant business and a very important. Also, somebody asked,
That's a
um,
pivot right
yes,
there.
yes, that is. Yes, but it's the same machinery apparently.
Yeah,
So they had all the equipment ready
Yeah,
to
I'm
go.
thinking
sure.
of some of their embossed gold foiled stickers they used to have is
Absolutely.
perfect for a wine label.
Yep.
Right. Yes. And what Jen was showing, even though it said create, is not the create event that Simon Says Stamps
No.
hosts. It is the crop on the Cape.
Yeah, it's
And
just the
somebody asked,
shortest creative word I can do in balloon letters.
nice.
Absolutely.
Yes. Um, and speaking about Simon Says Stamps, yeah, Heidi Crowell was our guest last time, actually
Yep.
just last week, and it's
Yep.
Stamp Timber now. So check out Stamp Timber. Hero Arts
Yes.
actually is next week. Our partner set. So watch for it
Oh,
on Stamp
giving away a
Timber.
little secret.
Um, yes,
He's not saying
and
what
then
day.
Somebody's in trouble.
not
True.
saying what day.
Today is lawn fawn.
Um,
Yes,
yeah,
today
today's
is
long.
long
It's great.
gone.
And then somebody asked about Stacy Parks, Scrapbooks Made Simple. Yes, she's a force on YouTube and a friend. She's worked with Hero Arts for many, many years. She does great YouTube videos. I just want to call her out because she's featuring some Hero Arts this week and next. So if you
Oh,
haven't
cool.
visited Scrapbooks Made Simple on YouTube, another force on YouTube. And one of the things that she does, which is a question that I have for you, Jen, is she is very good at reaching different customers and new customers. How do you think about that? Like you've got wonderful customers that obviously follow you and know you just from the comments that we've seen today. So many people really appreciate kind of the teaching that you do, the love that you pour into your videos and events. I think it's, again, if you haven't done it, anybody in the audience, be sure to check it out. But so many people say how much they appreciate you and the influence that you provide to them. Technique wise, people love your coloring guides, all of that stuff. But as an industry, I think we need to continue to grow and evolve. We need to continue to pivot because customers change and markets change. How do you think about attracting new customers? How do you think about trying different things like we've talked about in the series TikTok? Not everybody uses TikTok, but especially if you're over, 26, which I definitely am.
We are
And
not.
so I say that because my kids, my daughter is 26, and she and my younger kids also, they all use TikTok. I'm sure other people do too, but that's the way I think about it. So how do you attract new customers? How do you think about finding not only the wonderful customers that keep coming back, that kind of make and are at the heart of our industry, like everybody who's here tonight, but the people who don't know to tune in to Hanging with Hero, don't know about Jenn Shurkus on YouTube, don't find your website. Like, how do you think about diversifying and finding that new customer, again, that the whole industry together we need to work on in order to continue to grow and thrive?
Well, I think that's the magic question, right? As a small
Yeah.
business, how do you find new customers and new friends? I think as a employee of one in Creative Chick Co. here, I'm I'm maxed out. There's nothing else new that I can do. A few of my friends were
Absolutely.
like, "You need to start a TikTok." I'm like, "Nope."
Nope.
Like I have no more time. Um, I definitely think there is something to be said about social media, as frustrated as we might get about algorithms and trying to figure them out. I don't try to figure them out. I just
Yep.
post and do things, and you'd be surprised where somebody will be like, "Oh, I never even knew, that you did this." I do also try to remind my community to share about my classes and my events and
Yeah.
and the things that I'm sharing. They're the best advertising, because if they like what I'm doing, then they're going to be excited to share about it, and I always appreciate when they do. Um but yeah, I just think it's, being consistent, doing a little bit of social media. You don't need to do all the social media.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I'll even just do a YouTube live explaining the details of an upcoming event.
Yep.
And a YouTube god will allow a new eyeball to see me. But yeah, it's funny. I actually don't post a lot of polished videos on YouTube, and I found that interesting listening to some of the Hanging with Heroes. I know I'm very similar in how Tim likes to just teach live. And I think Heidi Swap was mentioning that she doesn't like to
Yep.
do, voiceovers and stuff. I've tried, and I do post them here and there, but man, I just throw a camera on live and let me teach. Like voiceovers are the death of me. I don't know how you do them, Jennifer. You're
They take
amazing.
forever. They take
Yeah.
forever. There was one that I did right before I was on vacation with my girls this weekend, and the day before, I needed to get it done, right? It took me 5 hours to do one voiceover. It just, one thing after another was happening, interruptions. I think, but there's aspects of everything we do. I know we love what we do because we get to create, right? But things like social media, it takes so much time. And somebody just messaged me the other day asking if I was okay because I haven't been sharing much on Instagram, like reels or cards. And I'm like, it's just one more thing. And if I do those things, then it takes away from new content. So it's like, what do you do? It's a balance. So TikTok isn't even on my radar. Like, it's not even like.
Mine neither. Yeah, mine neither.
But I'm glad some people are there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's great. I know Gina's been posting over there, obviously Ralph, but I just can't take on one more thing. I like to go on TikTok and see like the dog and cat videos every once in a while when I want to laugh, but that's about it. But I am lucky. I do, for my in-person events, I have a crew of friends that live here on the Cape. I call them my fun friends, and they take time from their big people jobs and help me run those events. So I'm very lucky with that. And then my friend Josie from college is working for me part-time right now. So she's been helping me behind the scenes, just answering some emails and doing some class handouts.
That's good.
Man, it's amazing.
That's helpful.
Yeah. That is.
But
and I do
all
think
about constantly building building your community. Again, other people telling other people about you in an organic manner, I think is priceless. Yeah. And then, just hoping that social media algorithm picks up a new eyeball here and there.
Yes.
Just do your thing.
Yep.
Yes.
Just do your thing.
You be you. And I do think that's a great lesson. And I think it's well said, Jen. I think that's exactly how we all, follow that mantra that a rising tide lifts all boats. Because even an event like Hanging with Hero, a number of people said in the comments that, Jen, have new fans that didn't know you and are going to try that. And in turn, you use Hero Arts, and new people from your channel, from your audience, they find Hero Arts. I think you, Jennifer, your videos have always kind of crossed those bounds into many different customers because you're from scrapbooking and you do card making and very technique focused. And even in this Hanging with Hero series, just watch back. We've had, Nabil and Tasneem from Alt New, Greg from Conquer the Ninth, Kelly from Lawn Fawn. We mentioned Ralph Tyndall from TikTok. He was one. Simon Hurley. So you can look back, Christina Werner, Kathy Z, different people covering different audiences, and yet it's all this wonderful community. If we can help each other, that's what we're here for. And I think that is such a wonderful message. And it's almost because of card making. Card making is about, yes, pouring your love into and creativity into your card, but it's also about that joy of giving and the joy that person receives from getting it. So all of it is connected, and I think it's all one wonderful industry that makes this, again, a rare place. So with that, thank you so much, Jen, for joining us for an episode of Hanging with Heroes. Wonderful talking with you. We could talk all night. I feel like I've got so many more questions for you. Yes, but maybe we'll end there. So really, it's been wonderful to have you. Thank you. And as always, Jennifer, you're a wonderful co-host, and without you, I wouldn't be doing this. So I think
glad to be
every
here.
episode. Yes.
And Jen and I have been talking. We just haven't made it happen yet because we're both always drowning. We want to go live together. And Jen, I think we should do a live where we use lawn fawn and hero arts together.
Ooh, let's
fun.
do it.
And you can teach me to Copic.
I'll probably use one of those red rubber background stamps. I love them.
Yes,
There you go.
they are good. They are good. There's great new ones in the holiday release too.
Yay. Yay, yay, yay.
All right.
we'll plan that.
You heard it here first. Yes.
Yeah.
Jennifer and Jen are going live sometime soon. Watch for it.
Yep.
All right. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for joining. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Bye.
Bye.